Hello everyone, we're standing here today at World Hydrogen Week, organized by World Hydrogen Leaders. My name is Johann Wiebe from Hydrogen Standard. This event is organized in Copenhagen, by the way. And with me here today stands René Cotting, CFO from Smartenergy. Welcome, René.
Welcome as well, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to give some insights into what we are doing.
Yeah, fantastic. It's great to have you. About a year ago, we had a similar sort of at least set up and a conversation. We addressed quite a few topics. I say we, but obviously you addressed quite a few topics, very interesting topics. And I think it would be great to continue that conversation a little bit where we left off. So, but before we do so, maybe it'd be good for you to do a little bit of an intro into Smartenergy and also your role in the business.
Okay. So Smartenergy, we are an investor and developer of renewables, especially on the green hydrogen and power to X, as well renewables on the PV, wind farms, etc. We are about 400 people. We have a pipeline of 14 gigawatts, especially in Europe, but we also did large solar plants in Latin America and South America.
And you're the Chief Financial Officer, speaks for itself.
Yeah, that's true. So looking for financing, and therefore also maybe a little bit reflecting about where we are in the industry, what are the opportunities and challenges.
Well, I guess there are probably plenty, which we also already have heard sort of in the last 2 days at the event here. But let's start with investment. You did a presentation about investment in the hydrogen sphere. Can you talk a little bit about what sort of the broad messages that you bring across?
Yeah, okay. So last year I was talking about what more the challenges are. And I said, look, there is such a huge opportunity about the demand. If I just take today's hydrogen, which is about 100 million tons, which is produced and consumed each year. But 98% of that hydrogen is produced still with steam reforming methods, so fossil fuels. Per se, only 2% is clean or green hydrogen. And therefore I said, look, this is such a huge opportunity just to decarbonize the production of hydrogen, which is today 900 million tons a year, that everybody should go moving. And now I reflected with the new data about it, and I saw delays are getting long in order really to go moving. And I was talking then about, okay, why are there delays? Because it's so obvious. CO2 emissions are 50% higher today than 1995. The surface temperature goes up 2.5 times. It's more than 1 degree already. So my kids are saying, Dad, why nobody's acting as they should act? And then I was reflecting in my presentation about mental barriers. When I talk to banks, when I talk to investors, when I talk to players in the field, suppliers, of course, they want to sell equipment, etc. They also cannot understand why not things are moving so fast. Politicians, they are talking about it and getting new regulations one after the other. But there are certain barriers. And one of the barriers is to understand how money decisions, financing decisions are being taken. That is extremely important for us. It's a new industry to understand. And maybe one element to say, I said it into mental barriers which are there, because it's easier to say no than yes for a novel industry. Because if you say yes, it's like, we call it management by mushrooms. Maybe you know that?
Never heard the expression, but please allude it to us.
Okay, when you have management by mushroom, is the one who is getting the head out is chopped the first. Okay, so you duck yourself into it, and so you might convince somebody in a bank or financial institutions to finance it. They say yes. His superior says yes. Credit committee might say yes. And then they say, okay, let's check also with risk committee. And they say no. And then everything is gone. So, and you might have had due diligence 6 months into it, and still you get a no, because there are certain mental barrier. And my talk was then that actually the investment is right now. It's the best opportunity to invest now.
Well, I'm definitely going to bite onto that sort of like point why the investment is right now. But a little bit back to your point to say when the risk managers say or decide it's a no, does a no necessarily mean a permanent no, or does it no mean maybe a no right now? Go back to the drawing board, make some adjustments so we're happy with the risk, and then it could be a yes.
Yeah, exactly. So they never say definite no. So it's just certain elements, and for good reasons, which are not yet there. Can be elements about technology. Is the technology, secure enough? Is it mature enough? It might be on the political regulations. Is it that now, or is something new coming, which is de-risking my investment? Because they only have one goal. The one goal is to get the money they are putting in to get it back, and with a decent return, obviously, on it. And this is a valid goal, and this is really understandable. So it might be a financial risk. Is there an offtake agreement? Do we know about the pricing? Is it long-term enough so that the project can earn enough money in order to get it? Are there certain instabilities into it? What's about the partnership, about the suppliers? Will the supplier actually be able to supply all this equipment and service it also over time? Because we are talking about plants which are going 30, 40 years. We talk about the solar and wind farms, then the electrolyzers, then the Fischer-Tropsch or all the refinery into it. So it's a long value chain which needs to be mastered. So good reasons, which then in a due diligence need all to be worked on.
Okay, fair point. A lot of characteristics that all need to stack up for a project to go ahead. Certainly also one of the reasons why we have so many challenges and also opportunities in the market. But you alluded a little bit to the challenges, but you also mentioned sort of like an opportunity as the investment time is now. Well, there's no time like the present, René. Tell us, why is the investment time now?
Yeah. So you can also say when you don't move now, you're Johnny come late, right? So somebody needs, of course, to move. And there are certain elements which are getting me more secure into it. On the one hand side, technology is getting better and better. So the DRL is getting secured also on the electrolyzer. Yes, there are modularized setup of the stacks of our electrolyzers, etc. is being worked out. The engineering, but also large companies are getting into it. So on that side is one thing. But the other part is the demand. Just the potential demand is tremendous, because we are talking about transitioning. We are talking about 150 million tons of hydrogen to be needed in 2030, because there will be new applications coming in also for the aviation, for mobility, for the power. Grid stability, storage we are talking about as well. And there are certain elements, estimates going up to even 500 million tons by 2050. So it really goes up, and it's replacing oil and gas. That's what we are talking about. So potential demand is here. Now, is it affordable or not? That's one question. Of course, you can say as an economist, just put ETS, carbon tax, etc., make all the oil and gas more expensive, then you're shuffling it into the new technologies, into the hydrogen and the derivatives out of it. Easy game, right? But it's not so easy, because then you might have protests on the streets, everything gets more expensive, and are you still competitive, etc. So you need to have other arguments. One of the arguments is that actually money is getting cheaper again. So interest rates are coming down, and that has a huge impact on the borrowing costs as well. And on the other hand side, you also see a lot of investments are coming in now into the green energy. It is also because some of the companies, but also public, have given themselves net zero targets. So they need to place it. Also the big infrastructure fund, they need to place it. So this money is coming in and start to accelerate into it. And thirdly, maybe just thirdly, and then is the regulation. And maybe you ask about the regulations, right?
I see your keen bee, and just again, I will take the hook for sure. But first, one step back as to sort of like you talk about the demand, the potential of demand. I think sort of everybody in the industry probably recognizes it. But what you hear and what you see is that sort of like the off-takers are largely not present as actively in the market as they currently should. Why is there this discrepancy then? And what is then, as a follow-up question before we will move into the regulation, what would be the, sort of like the low-hanging fruit for the hydrogen market if there's something like that?
Yeah. I think off-takers, it's very rational about thinking, hey, if you're starting now a new industry, first the costs are always higher, and then you have the learning curve, so the costs come down. Also with the capacity increase, the costs are coming down. So why should I commit already now? And it's a little bit a chicken and egg issue, because of course, in order to make the projects bankable and the finance coming in, you should have long-term offtake contracts. You should have clearly pricing set. Yes, you can index it dependingly on certain inflation rates whatsoever, but you need to have that, and only then the money is coming in. So then the off-takers are hesitating to come in. I could just wait until next year or the year after, because then it will be cheaper. So that situation you have a little bit. Now, how to solve that is through auctions. H2 Global is one way where you can then give long-term contracts, and the off-taker has only a short-term contract, so a long-term contract to the producers, short-term contract to the off-takers, and the middle, you make contracts for differences where you compensate it out, and that works then, so they can come in.
Has worked very well in the wind industry, I believe solar as well in the past?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we can really take the experience of decades, what worked out, and you saw the solar prices. I mean, there's also another argument why time of investments is now, because the capex costs are decreasing also on the electricity side, because electricity is a large component of hydrogen, and therefore with the solar module prices coming down and having been coming down more than 50% over a year, is of course also a good support.
Okay, regulation then. Tell us, what do you want to say about regulation?
Yeah, regulation is probably, typically people always criticize politics, right? But in that case, we can not really criticize in saying, hey, they have done a good thing. On the one hand side, of course, US, we know about the Inflation Reduction Act, and it has triggered a lot of investments in there. But on the other hand side, also in Europe, with the directive of the Refuel Act, for the blending quota for kerosene, where you need to get now SAF and eSAF into for the aviation, it's a perfect regular or directive as such. Because what it says is something I haven't seen before. It says principally, you need to fuel, as a fuel supplier, you need to tank all your airlines. And if you don't tank enough, then the difference between the eSAF price or SAF price and the kerosene price, that difference times 2 times the volume you have not tanked is the penalty you need to pay, which makes it automatic by all definition of mathematics, of math, that eSAF and SAF is always cheaper than not complying. Yes. Okay. And that makes then a natural demand, and the demand is supporting then higher prices, and therefore all of your eSAF production sites, plants, etc., will get decent return.
It sounds to me a little bit sort of a carrot and a stick methodology as to get the market moving. By non-compliance, you'll get the stick, and by sort of like compliance, you'll get some benefits moving into the market into the right direction as set out by the regulators. You already sort of delved into sort of SAF, downstream market, so to speak, of the hydrogen side. I mentioned a little bit low-hanging fruit. What is sort of, in your opinion, the demand sectors that are obvious for hydrogen to get the offtake from in the near and current future?
Yeah, I think we as Smartenergy, we have 4 segments into it, and for hydrogen we have aviation sector, and this is because of that regulation. We have the hard to abate industry sector, So steel, ceramics, so everywhere where you need to have a lot of heat, where typically you would burn fossil fuel, but now replacing it with green hydrogen. And the third sector is the maritime. And I think maritime is underestimated. There's a huge potential as well, and also regulations are coming up there, similar to aviation. And I guess also on the hard-to-abate industries that's coming on. And the fourth segment, we still do the power to grid, so the large solar plant. So that is, I would say, the good segments to focus on.
That provide plenty of scope. Let's take the conversation and finally a little bit back to the investment sort of perspective and sort of like the appetite for risk and the various players that need to adhere to their mandates in making their decisions. Tell us a little bit about what are your thoughts on that?
So on the magnitude of risks, or
yeah, so the spectrum of the different investors and the investment atmosphere, if you can call it that, of investment spectrum, and
Yes.
then sort of like the sort of products and the sort of projects they can invest in based on the risk profile, etc.
yeah, it's a good because when I say investment, the time for investment is now. It doesn't mean that everybody needs now to jump on early stage project and mid-late stage project. No, the thing is, as an investor, you need to find out what is my playing field. Where should I go in? And dependingly on your mandate you have from. You might get in the development phase, and there's maybe more on the venture side, more risk takers. That the risk is much higher. The return perspectives are also much higher. If you really want to have 3, 4, 10 times multiples, you go into very early stage in order to make it. But then you go into construction phase where the risks are lower. There probably private equity, pension funds are coming in. Some might already go into the development stage if there is also a combination, and I showed that in my presentation about finance solution and insurance solutions, which can actually de-risk, because it's all about de-risking certain elements in the development phase, and then they can also go earlier in, which is extremely needed because they are coming with the big pockets of money. Or then you go into your operational phase, and also that is needed in order to get going. So just playing field.
Capital required at every stage, sort of the development process of getting a project online.
Yeah, we need everywhere capital into it. I think the worst is if you don't do anything. That is the worst, because at the end we still talk about the next generations. We have some mandate and some purpose to do.
Well, not doing anything is also doing something, but maybe not the right thing. What we're all supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that's a good summary. Yeah.
Bit of a riddle. René Cotting from Smartenergy, CFO. Thank you very much for this chat.
Thank you very much for raising those questions, and looking forward to keep in touch.